Hello and welcome to BBC Parliament's coverage of the general election. Prime Minister Gordon Brown took part in a question and answer session with students from Brighton. He was joined on stage by comedian and actor Eddie Izzard.
I've been on stage quite a lot before, but I haven't been on stage with Gordon Brown before. So welcome to everyone here. I would just like, before we start, to say a couple of things. The schools are here, Basvik, Sixth Form College, and Varndine, and I think Brighton College. Okay, hang on a second. Basvik, Varndine, Brighton College. Okay. So we're gonna have a fight later. We can have a food fight or something. So work out where everyone is. That's very good. And I'd like to say a big thank you on a charity note for people from Basvik who have raised over £11,000 for Haiti and for Invisible Children, which is an excellent thing they've done. And I believe a lot of you are political students, and you know there's been a debate last night, and I think that Gordon did very well last night. I think everyone did pretty good last night, but I think Gordon was sticking it to David Cameron and saying, what are you going to do about teachers and police? Where are you going to find this $6 billion extra that you're going to pull out? And David Cameron did not answer this question, so I think David Cameron came third place in that debate last night on Monday. So we're here for your questions, and Gordon's here to answer them. I might chuck something in, but basically, you ask the questions, and Gordon's going to answer them. So,
can I just say, first of all, before we begin, thanks to Eddie Izzard. Yeah. Eddie has raised more than 1.8 million for charity as a result of his marathon running around the United Kingdom. And you know, Eddie started as a student doing mathematics, finance and accountancy at Sheffield. And if things had gone another way, he would have been Chancellor of the Exchequer by now. I first came across Eddie in 1997 when we did an advert together to try to persuade people to give money to charity called Gift Aid. And if you gave money, you would get tax relief. Unfortunately, Eddie gave his fee to charity and then was taxed on it by mistake. But that's how good Eddie is, and he's a great man, and I'm really proud of what he does for our country. Eddie, we're very, very proud of you. I just want to say something about the big challenges in this campaign. Over the next 15 years, the world economy will double in size. So there'll be twice as many businesses, twice as many opportunities for jobs, twice as many opportunities to sell products or services to every part of the world. So whatever's happening now in this global financial recession and what has happened to the banks, and they've had to be sorted out, the first crisis of globalization, there's going to be a huge number of new opportunities around the world for everybody. And I want Britain, and I want you to get the advantage of that. There's great opportunities for jobs because we're going to digitalize the whole country. Super fast broadband everywhere. We're going to move to the second generation of the internet very soon, and we've got Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the internet, working with us to develop what he calls the semantic web, which is the new direction in which the web's going to take. We've got huge medical advances happening in this country, pharmaceuticals, life science, bioscience, great opportunities for jobs. And we've got great creative industries in this country, from fashion to design to music to arts to cinema, everything that we do in the English language particularly, selling to the rest of the world. And I want everybody here to get the advantage of these new opportunities. So what are we going to do? First of all, as I was saying last night in the debate, we've got to secure this economic recovery. We've got to make sure that we don't lose more jobs and lose more businesses. We've got to make sure that we have growth in the economy over the next few years, and we've got to make sure that we don't have growth stalled this year, because that would put lots of jobs, lots of businesses and lots of services at risk. And I will keep repeating to the country, if you pull £6,000 million out of the economy and just cut it out of the economy in the next few months, as the Conservatives plan to do, that is jobs at risk, that is businesses at risk, that is growth at risk, that is the danger of a double-dip recession, and we do not want people's opportunities for jobs to be affected in that way. And that's why, right around the country, every day of this campaign, I'll be explaining to people Don't let the Conservatives wreck the recovery. And the second thing I'm going to say to people is, while we cut this deficit from 2011 onwards, the deficit that has been necessary to save us from higher unemployment in a recession, we want to make sure that our schools and our NHS and our police are properly protected. So when I asked the Conservatives last night, would you protect the policing of our country and make sure that they match the funding that we're giving to the policing, they could say no. So there's a real danger that in different communities there'll be less police if there was a Conservative government, and therefore less safety and less security. And when I asked them, would you protect the schools funding in this country so that every young person and every person going to a children's centre will have the opportunities they have now, they could not give that answer yes either. And when I asked them about the National Health Service, and I said, look, what are you going to do about the National Health Service? Why can't you give patients the guarantee that we give, that you'll see a cancer specialist within 2 weeks, you'll see a GP in the evenings or at weekends, you'll be able to get a health checkup that used to be private, free of charge in the National Health Service if you're over 40. If you need an operation, you'll get it in 18 weeks. Why can't they give the guarantees that we are giving, personal guarantees to each patient, to make sure that the health service is there for you when you need it? And when it all adds up to this, a risk on schools, a risk on the NHS, a risk on police, a risk on the recovery, a risk on jobs, a risk on the economy, I just say to you, coming out of recession, the Conservative Party is a risk too far. Now, what we want to do is build the jobs and industry of the future. We're going to invest in these jobs. And we're also going to make ourselves part of the wider world. And a lot of you are studying politics and looking at different countries around the world, and I'm proud that with Eddie's help, our record on international development aid is to double the amount of international development aid that we make available to Africa and the rest of the world, as we've done over the last few years. There's a story about the Swedish Prime Minister, Olof Palme, and he came into Washington when Ronald Reagan was President of America, and he met him to talk to him about international development. And Olof Palme was famed at that time. He was assassinated in Sweden, a tragedy. He was famed at that time for what he had done on international development and making aid available to the poorest countries of the world. And he came into America in the 1980s, met President Reagan. When, just before he arrived, President Reagan said to his advisors, "Isn't he a communist?" And his advisors said, "No, Mr. President, he's an anti-communist." And President Reagan said, "I don't care what kind of communist he is." But he asked Olof Palme, "What do you stand for?" And Olof Palme said, "I stand for the chance of every person in this world to have the opportunity to develop their potential to the full, to be able to bridge the gap between what they are and what they have it in themselves to become, to make sure that their talents are fully realized, their potential is not unfilled, and the possibilities that are open to all of us are available to every child in the world." Now, that's my ambition. I want to work with you to achieve it. The world is changing very, very fast. But if we secure the recovery, protect our public services, build the jobs and industry of the future, then I would believe that we will not only be a successful country in ourselves, we will be able to show the world what a just, a fair, and equal society looks like. Thank you very much.